Hey, this is your boy Roto Beast. I'm here with my boy Jeremy, aka DFS Dudes, and we're here to present you our NBA Live segment for Tuesday, November 27th. We're about 45 minutes before lock tonight, so we're here to answer any questions that you guys have for us leading up to lock. It's just a little bit of a tricky 5-game slate. So yeah, man, feel free to jump in here, jump in the chat, ask any questions that you got. We'll get to them as quickly as possible. And like I said, man, we're only going to be on here for about 15 to 20 minutes because I definitely gotta get ready to do my lineups as well. So, hey, man, how you doing out there, Jeremy?
What's up, man? Another NBA slate. Taking questions. See what you guys got.
So,
the box.
Real quick, I mean, if you don't mind, take that quick second, click the like button for me down below. Helps me out a lot. Really, really appreciate that from you guys. And yeah, man. So before we get into our questions, we'll let them build up a little bit. I just want to quickly ask you. We were talking about this earlier. So, do you really think that LeBron is a lock on tonight's slate, especially for cash games?
I'm just taking a look at, like kind of the last thing I do with research is I'll start reading stuff and kind of look around and see where everybody else is at, just to see if I can kind of predict ownership. But I just think he's chalk, dude. I think he's going to be chalk. I think that it's a slate where he's had a good game already against Denver this year, and it's a short slate, 5 games. He's the obvious most popular player on the slate, and his price is only 11-2. And with a little bit of research, you can see that they're not great against small forwards, 17th in DVP to small forwards. We know LeBron's playing like the point forward position when he has, the ball. They're giving up a ton of ass to point guards too. Denver is, we talk about it all the time. They're really efficient this year defensively. So I can see how that could be a minor concern. And if it was a deeper slate, then you could definitely look to just fade this spot. But I just think that on a slate where there's so much value and you can definitely build lineups with Jokic, LeBron, and Blake Griffin in them, I think you got to have 2 guys tonight. And I like the floor of LeBron versus the floor of Jokic. And I think LeBron has every bit the upside, obviously, that Jokic has. So for me, I just think that this is a guy you lock in and move on.
Yeah, so, I mean, I get everything that you're saying about LeBron. I get it. And I understand he had a really good game against them their last time out. He had a triple-double, 28, 11, and 11 for 65 fantasy points. But, I mean, on this 11-2 price tag for value, we still need 56 just for value. I'm going to tell you my biggest concern about this spot for LeBron. It's not – I mean, obviously we talked about it. Denver's a really good team. But the other thing that's really throwing me off is the game that he did really well in. They were in L.A. Now, they're going into Denver, and we always talk about teams against Denver, and we can't deny that, bro. I mean, you always talk about that. It's not something that we can overlook, and that's one of the main things that's really even kind of throwing up even more red flags for me on LeBron.
Right, but I mean, for me, I'm always a guy that one thing I weigh heavily is previous performance, and I want to see how many games are in that. And you can just look back to last year, and he wasn't even with the Lakers last year. And last year he puts up 63 and 63. So on a big slate, right?
No,
on a big slate, I can see it. And like yesterday's a good example of a big slate. Yesterday's a good example that there was multiple ways you could pay up yesterday. Like you could fade Harden and still cash if you had Durant, right? But tonight, you also don't need that 6 or 7x because the short is slated and there's more chalk, right? Like there's going to be more commonality in lineups on a shorter slate. There's less places to go. So I just think for me, my money, I mean, I'm really close with my exposures right now. I have 2 different tables built, and one of them I have 100% LeBron James for tournament. So I'm like, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I get it though. I mean, I get it 150% about how we're talking about it's a small slate, and so it's a little bit different build, and that makes absolute sense to me, bro. That honestly does make very, very much sense to me. Like you said,
I think too, right? I think too, like you mentioned, what we have to get for value. If you look at, I mean, let's just pop this open real quick and take a look at Jokic, right? Like, who are you more comfortable paying up for? Jokic at 9,000, who's got 28. Like 28 tonight will bust you. If Jokic gets 28 tonight and you have him, you could bust, right? LeBron's not gonna get you 28. Like it's not gonna happen. Unless he gets hurt, or something like that. I don't want to say anything's a certainty, but I mean, he 45, 57, 69. I mean, 73 against Portland. The guy's playing at a very high level. And the thing I like about it is that you take a look at Lonzo Ball, and if you pop open his player card, you can see his minutes have not been the greatest, right? 28. He's only got in this stretch here, since Rondo's gone out, he's only played 30 minutes 3 of those games, right? He's got a 28 and a 21 and a 28 in there. So it's not like Lonzo Ball's got a huge uptick in minutes and he's dominating the point guard position.
Right. I definitely get you. So moving on, I actually got another question for you. I'm kind of going back and forth with this myself, so I wanted to kind of hear your opinion on it. What do you think about Darren Collison versus Corey Joseph?
So I put Collison in my core today, and what I said was there's really a few ways you can go. So if for tournaments, you're obviously building multiple lineups. If you build with Joseph and lineup number 1, when you go to lineup number 2, you just swap out Collison for Joseph. And then lineup number 3, you can even get really cute. I don't know if contrarian is the word or aggressive, but you could load in Jeremy Lin, right? Okay. And then the other guy is this Aaron Holiday. He's at the shooting guard position. So, and his price is $4,800. He's getting about 21 minutes without Oladipo. So, you got Magruder, who is kind of in a chalky spot tonight too. You could kind of switch those two out. So I like it for tournaments because I just don't know how much we can trust it. And they're not getting a huge amount of minutes, right? We're really talking about 26 minutes.
And for me, like, not trying to cut you off or anything, my dude, but I mean, like, the more I'm looking at this slate, the more I've been looking at it the past hour and a half, I think it's really starting to turn into more of a GPP slate for me.
Oh, it's 5 games for sure. I mean, it's 5. It's hey, 2, 3, 4, 5 games tournaments. That's the way it is.
Right.
You really need 6 to 7 games before you start getting into a cash game slate. I mean, this is a lighter slate. Figure out what you're going to do with your bankroll. Stick to your strategy. Stick to your bankroll management. Don't load up. I mean, you can go under. If you're a 10% bankroll player every single night, you don't have to go 10% tonight in cash.
Right. Just real quick, I just want to get to one quick thing. Matthew Comaraz, he was asking me if the optimizer is down. Matthew, I'm actually on the optimizer right now. I just ran it. I got my 10 lineups that I was looking to run. So on my end, the optimizer is running smoothly. If you're having any problems with the optimizer, one thing we always recommend to people, we're constantly throwing updates, trying to add new things in our optimizer every single day. So what I recommend is just clear cache, close your browser and open it back up and see if that works. That usually works 95% of the time. So if it's not working for you right now, that's the first thing that I would look at. And if it doesn't work for you still after you try that, you can definitely message us in this little blue box in the bottom right corner. This should go straight to our tech support and we can figure out what's going on, with the optimizer for you. So I just wanted to quickly get to that. So, man, some questions that we got. I mean, we didn't have no really direct questions. We just kind of got who are cash game locks, who are GPP locks. On this particular slate, I don't really think that there's a really big difference between a cash game lock and a GPP lock. Like we said, the slate is starting to turn up to be a little bit more of a GPP slate. So, I mean, I think that you just talk about locks in general, who you think should be in lineups tonight. I don't think there's really too much of a difference between cash and GPP plays on this slate, really.
I would agree with you about 90% of that. But what I would say is that a lot of the plays are crossover plays. There's definitely still chalk, right? There's still chalk, and those are the cash plays. I mean, I think Magruder for cash is probably a pretty solid, safe play, as close to a free square. I think that Blake Griffin's going to be in a popular spot. I think he's probably in a safe spot for cash too. And then I think LeBron James is.
And one thing I just quickly want to note is I know everybody's going to go to to Blake Griffin. I mean, me personally, I'm thinking about going to Blake Griffin. But I just wanted to mention this. This is something that I found in my research earlier today. So Andre Drummond, he plays much better at home and struggles on the road. And Blake Griffin is the absolute opposite. He struggles at home and he's much better on the road. I want to say Blake Griffin averaged, I think it was like 10. I think it was 10 to 12. I didn't write it down. My bad. I think it was like 10 to 12 less points Blake Griffin averaged on the road compared to at home. Compared to Drummond was a complete opposite. He averaged 10 to 12 more fantasy points at home compared to on the road. So that's just something I quickly did want to note because Detroit is at home today. But either way, I mean, on a small slate, Blake Griffin is in a great spot going against this young New York Knicks team.
Yeah, I think he'll be relatively chalky, so I think he's a safe cash game play. Right. I think Collison is in the same spot. I mean, Collison, I'm borderline feeling like Collison is a trap play today because it's a back-to-back and he went off for 40 yesterday. Right.
People were all going to flock to him. Yeah, I get you completely.
I just feel like it's chasing points. But here's the thing. It's what the slate dictates. Right. And it's kind of like I hate to use 4,900 on a drop spot, but that's kind of how I'm building today.
Yeah, and that's what's really kind of pushing me towards more of a GPP slate where I may just max in or not play so much cash is the fact that, I mean, we got a lot of guys on this slate that we're saying that they should be in lineups, that we should play them. But if this was a bigger slate, we wouldn't even be talking about these guys, you know?
I would still be probably talking about Dwayne Wade. Because
Dwayne Wade, yeah, but I'm talking about like the Collison, the Blake Griffin at almost 10,000. Like, you know, there's a couple.
I like, for me, there's two guys that I like. Well, I'll give you three, right? That I like a ton. That are maybe contrarian. So you have Collison, Joseph, and Aaron Holiday situation, right? For me, I much prefer Tyreke Evans. Because I don't feel like anybody's on that, for one. And for two, game history against Phoenix. Evans has really good game history against Phoenix, averaging 41.0 fantasy points against them dating back to last year. So I feel like that's a spot you can be contrarian. I like Evans opposed to the other two guys. And small forward's kind of thin, man, outside of really like LeBron, Richardson. You could play Hernan Gomez. Hernan Gomez has played 30-plus minutes in his last – I believe 8 straight games, he's played 30-plus minutes. So that's another place you could look to. But outside, I mean, there's ugly spots. And that's why I mean, like, I don't think this is like a traditional 5-game slate where you can't have some cash game locks, because I think there's some free squares. Like, there's just certain positions are very limited. They're very limited.
Yeah, no, I definitely get you. And the thing about, for me, I'm not on Evans, bro. Like, I'm a really big Tyreke Evans fan. And we've seen it years past, year after year. When he plays 30-plus minutes, this dude fills up the stat sheet. That's what he does. But they're just not giving him the minutes. Even with Oladipo out, he's still only getting 23, 24 minutes a game. And that's what's really frustrating me with the Tyreke Evans things, because if they want to win some games without Oladipo, this guy is the best pure scorer, in my opinion. And I like him. I'm a Tyreke Evans fan, like I said. I just don't like the minutes that they're giving this dude.
If you want to win, put Booby in.
For sure. So, I mean, if you guys got any more questions, we're going to be here for a couple more minutes answering questions. Feel free to ask the questions. If not, I'm going to be getting out of here shortly. I got 150 lineups that I got to build out. So that's something I got to get to. So definitely get us those questions in real quick before we get off of here. So, man, how you max entering tonight, kind of moving on? Is that how you playing tonight's slate?
Yeah, but let me say one thing about Evans before we get off that. Just exactly what you mentioned is why I like him, right? We can see in his game log that 25 and 24 is what he played in the last back-to-back, which was 11-16, 11-17. And he played 23 minutes last night. So I think you can count on 24, 25 minutes out of him tonight against a team he's killed in the past. And I just don't think anybody's on him. I think that this is a guy you can get low owned tonight. If he gets you 40 tonight and he's 8%, 9%, 10% owned, man, it's a great play.
Hey, do we have any news on Gary Harris right now, or we still haven't got nothing yet?
Let me look at the feed.
Yeah, I didn't. I know that
Rome.
Jokic and
So let me
out.
just break that down for Rome real quick. I look at previous game history. I touched on this in my core play video. I went with Bam in my core. I think Whiteside's an okay play for tournaments, but recent game history, number one, and my kind of Whiteside rule number two. I hate playing Whiteside on the road. This is a home game, so he's in play. The last home game he had against Atlanta was last year. He had 40.6 fantasy points on Fanduel. And then the other ones, they're duds. They're like 20s. So I don't mind him, but Bam in that same stretch has averaged, let me check my sheet, 26.3 at 0.96 fantasy points per minute. So I'm more on Bam than I am on Whiteside. I think Whiteside could be somewhat contrarian. I just don't think if 40 or 45 is enough at 8,500 tonight.
Yeah, and then just real quick, so I just want to, I kind of answer my own question. So we got it in our news feed about an hour ago, and just so you guys know, man, if you guys got access to our optimizer and stuff, you could come to our news and you could sort it by injuries, by sits, starts, etc., seeing who people are saying you should play. This is some really good news. So about an hour ago, we got some news that Gary Harris is still questionable with the ankle. They're saying that he sat out Saturday, but it didn't look too serious. And the coach was hoping that he could return tonight. So for me, I think that he's a true game time decision. And it's a tough spot for us because we definitely want to get some of that value in Denver if he's out. But I just don't think we're gonna know if he's out or not.
Value, you talking like Monte Morris and Torrey Craig and Hernan Gomez?
Correct.
So I think that I think you're safe to play Hernan Gomez no matter what, just because we've got a nice sample size of 8 straight games at 30+ minutes, and I think that
Monte
Morris is in the same spot. I think rotationally, I think without Harris, obviously he gets an increase, but I think you can count on no matter what, like a 22, 23-minute floor with him.
Right. Yeah, no, I like him. Craig, I guess Craig would be the ultimate. But either way, even if we play Craig, he's going to be an ultimate flyer anyways.
Right.
At minimum price. So if Harris played and Craig just dudded, I mean, you could just, I mean, you can put, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't really care about Craig. Craig wasn't really the guy that I was looking at. The guy that I was looking at, I'm sorry, I got my names mixed up. The guy I was looking at, if Gary Harris was out, was this guy Malik Beasley for 3,500 minimum price. I think that he's a really good play. I think he'll pick up some extra minutes. But either way, I mean, 3,500, 3,800, either Beasley or Craig, you could use either one of them as your punt play.
Exactly. Yeah, you could.
And you know what sucks? That's the thing I don't like about the Fanduel thing. Because it's like, okay, for example, we use these guys as one of our punt plays, okay? But the guys do hella good, and your whole lineup does hella good. Then, I mean, the punt play is really useless for you. If you got 2 guys and both of them scored 34 and 35, and the 34 fantasy point guy gets dropped, it's like, fuck, that guy did good. So it kind of like – that's why I think a lot of people are just strictly going with.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Like there's a lot of strategy in how you use that pump play, right? So back in the day, when I played a lot of DK, the one thing that like the number one rule for DK NFL was your flex spot. You wanted to use like it had to be a late game player. It had to be, because if you had a lineup that went up the board, you needed to look at the people in front of you and see who they had. And then if you had the same guy they had, you had to swap him out, right? Because you weren't going to move any further with everybody getting the same points. Right. So you have to do the same thing with this drop spot. You have to look at who are you going to, I almost think you can't put your drop spot player in a late game. And I made that mistake last night. I had Durant and Iguodala, and I was really capped at like 344 because I was only getting points, from Durant. So Iguodala needed to get 29 points before his points counted. So I was kind of stuck. If I would have had 2 guys moving me up the board right there and one of them surpassing my drop spot, would have been a completely different deal. So I think you have to play your drop spot in the early game. You have to.
I get you. All right. Well, AJ, I'm not trying to cut you off, anything like that. I'm already on a couple more minutes than I wanted to be on here. I got to get out of here. I got to get these lineups ready for myself. I got to get these cash lineups out for members. You guys still got almost 30 minutes. If you guys want to jump in, mess with our optimizer, get our cash lines, go get a package, dfscheatsheet.com. Thanks for jumping in with me, Jeremy, and kind of chiming in on this slate. It's definitely, in my opinion, a lot better when you get two opinions compared to one. And thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back tonight with our NBA morning shoot around for Wednesday, November 28th. Make sure and be ready to come check us out tonight and come with all your questions on tomorrow's slate. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. What?
34 people.